All right. Should we get going?
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Ivan. I'll be hosting the space today. So let's just start with quick introductions. And Quentin, as you start first, it'll be lovely to hear from you. So tell us a bit more about yourself.
All right. Yeah, I'm Quinten. I'm head of marketing and growth at Zano. Happy to be here today.
Nice. Pavel, would you also want to tell us a bit about yourself?
Do I have to introduce myself every single time? Well, I'm Pavel. I'm a co-founder of Sana, and I'm doing most of the things here besides core development, product management, and front end apps, everything. Doing those spaces as well.
Nice. Thanks. Aaron, I'm sure the listeners would like to hear a bit more about you. Quinton, you might need to give him...
Aaron's not here yet. He will join us later on today.
I think he is. Maybe he's not at the computer right now.
Yeah, he's listening, but I invited him over as a speaker, but I think he will join like in half an hour when it's the time for Kaurma to be covered.
Yeah. Okay.
That's good. Got Gonzalo among us. Should we introduce him as well?
If he's here, yes. Hello, Gonzalo.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Sano's community manager. I'm happy to be here.
Pleasure to hear from you, Gonzalo. And actually, let's start with you because you went to MoneroTopia as well, and you mentioned that it was your first time in Mexico. So how was the experience? Tell me a bit more about MoneroTopia. I know that you interviewed a couple of people in Spanish. So what was the temperature check? How is everyone feeling about privacy coins?
It was amazing. It was actually my second time in Mexico, but it was my first time in MoneroTopia as part of a stand. So it was interesting to be from the other side. And compared to last year, I just I saw a lot more people interested in Sano. And so I had to make introductions both in English and Spanish. I felt like that there were more Mexicans interested in MoneroTopia. So that was cool, to practice, to use my Spanish a bit more. And it was amazing.
Nice. And Quentin, what's your main take from that experience? I know that it was your first time in MoneroTopia, so if you could just take us like the TLDR, how was it? Why is it such a unique event?
Yeah, sure. It was my second time there. I was there the previous year as well.
Oh, I just keep getting it wrong.
No worries. But yeah, I mean, I loved it. I loved it the previous year, and I think this year was even better. There were more Mexicans there, so the crowd was a little bigger. I think it was maybe slightly more professional than the year before as well, especially when it came to sound during the talks and all. The vendors there were super. They were like amazing. Lots of cool stuff. I bought a couple of things as well, and the interest in Zano was a lot bigger than the year before. So it was actually a lot of fun to talk with all these people and be at the booth. We had like this big booth. You can check out some pictures on our Twitter if you haven't seen them. Where we just, introduced all kinds of people to Zano, gave them some free Zano when they were installing the mobile wallet. I think all in all, it was very beneficial for us. And I think we all enjoyed it very much. I think also worth to be mentioned is most of the Zano team or some of the Zano team saw each other for the first time. It was also like a great opportunity to get to know each other and bond a little more than just over the internet. So that was really cool.
And both of you mentioned that Zano is gaining popularity. So what do you think is the main reason behind it?
I think it's just a well-deserved. I think, yeah. I mean, there have been so many updates over the past year that makes Zano such an interesting technology and blockchain, so versatile too. And I think people just notice this more and more. And we have people like Roger Ver and Aaron Day who have, been really doing an amazing job at spreading the word for Zano. Not only them, I'm just mentioning those two, obviously, but yeah, I think everyone has been hard at work, and it pays off. So it's great to see.
Nice. And Pavel, what's your take from it? What did you learn, or something interesting that you'd like to share with the community?
Well, my main takeaway, I think, would be that privacy people are not as close-minded as they used to be, because I saw a lot less tribalism than we had to deal before. So I think we are moving in the right direction, and a huge props to Monero community, because it's just getting easier to collaborate on certain things and push privacy forward together.
Nice. And just a question for everyone, whoever wants to take it, but I'm really interested to hear what was your favorite panel or a presentation.
I think
Who wants to take that one?
Yeah, Val's presentation was great.
Okay, that's unfair. We should.
Yeah, but it's literally the only one that I have watched because I was at the booth all the time. Yeah, and Aaron's. Yeah. I've also seen Aaron's presentation, which was also great, and the one from the Monero guy, but that one was less amazing. But yeah.
Yeah, it was a shame because I felt like.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say that it was a shame to see that Aaron had to cut his presentation at least in half, because I saw it was supposed to be much longer than the time allocated to it. So I have a feeling like we saw just like a tiny portion of it.
Gonzalo, what would you like to add?
Yeah, as for me, I was able to see some of Luke Parker's presentation on full chain membership proofs, and I think I'm just mind blown. I think it's amazing, and it's going to be an amazing addition to Zano as well.
Yeah, that's if I have to pick, and that would be the main event for us as well, because this is the major improvement to privacy in general, and something we are very eager to implement as well.
Yeah, thanks for catching me up with MoneroTopia. I would love to talk about the ongoing integrations, and let's start with the confidential layer. So, Pavel, could you please give us the latest update, and how have we progressed that over the last month? Actually, week, because you had a Twitter space around a week ago.
Well, since last month, and as you probably remember, last month we had a testnet running, and we were preparing a hard fork, and it's still coming probably in next month. As per things that been done, we are finalized the smart contracts on the EVM side, and they're being audited right now. So that was probably this month's update, and main things on confidential layer right now are airdrop related and social and marketing activities, that kind of thing. But we could probably get back to that later.
Yeah. Or Quentin could just tell us a bit more about, because I know that they'll be doing a big airdrop. So if Quentin can tell us about the confidential layer and how people can participate in that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the airdrop of Clone has been going on for a long time, for a while already, maybe like a month or so. You can go to, I believe it's cloneairdrop.com, and you can participate there. They have all kinds of quests that you can fulfill for them, and then gain what's space points, I believe was the name of it.
Some kind of points.
Yeah, and then later on, those points will be converted to like some amount of clone tokens that you can get airdropped. And I believe somewhere in the following weeks they will start with Zano dedicated tasks. So tasks like I don't know, follow some people of the Zano team on Twitter, but also like more sophisticated tasks like install the mobile wallet, register an Alias, go walk through the intro page, stuff like that. So it will introduce a lot of people to the Zano ecosystem, because I think they have like over 200,000 participants on the airdrop at the moment. So it's they've done a really great job with their marketing. So it's very exciting to see how that will unfold in the following weeks.
And Pavel, could you just tell us a bit more about why the partnership with Confidential Layer is so integral and important for the Zano community? Because for the listeners that are not up to speed of what Confidential Layer does and why it's important to Zano, it would be probably good to clarify, because we've been talking a lot about it on Discord, and it's kind of a well-known thing among the Zano community. But for the new joiners, it'll be good to dig a bit deeper there.
Sure. Well, there's a big picture stuff. As you know, Zano is transitioning into the ecosystem kind of project rather than a simple coin. And this is why it's extremely important for us to have a quality showcases, like a project that could be built using the Zano technology. And this is one of the perfect examples for that. There's a merit to the confidential layer itself, but I'll get to that in a moment. For Zano specifically, it's important because, first of all, we can achieve a higher transaction rate and LTV, which is one of the most important metrics for chains right now. And if we're going to be talking about confidential layers specifically and what it could do, confidential layer allows bridging or wrapping native cryptocurrencies between different blockchains, including privacy one, meaning you will be able to wrap Bitcoin or Ethereum-based coins on Zano, achieving the same level of privacy as native Zano. And also, you will be able to do the same thing with the privacy native coins, like confidential assets built on Zano or Zano itself, and bridge it to Ethereum, for example, and use it in lending protocols and all kinds of DeFi applications. So it brings a lot of utility to the both sides, and confidential layer is the thing in the middle that allows it.
Nice. Thank you so much for that. And Quentin, for you, could you just tell us a bit more about what's going on with the Cake Wallet integration, and how have we progressed that over the last month, and when are we hoping to go into full integration? Because I know that we're doing a bit of testing now.
Yeah, sure. The latest info I have is that they released their test builds of the Cake Wallet with Zano integrated into it. So, and they distributed it to the Zano team, and also Aaron has a version of it. So we've been testing a little bit, sending a bit of Zano back and forth, and all seems to work flawlessly. So yeah, it's really exciting. I think they are just testing it internally themselves as well for any bugs that might appear, patching those, and then in a couple weeks' time it should be ready. I don't have an exact date. I mean, it's not up to us; it's their integration. But I believe Vic mentioned in their chat, or he tweeted about it, that they aim for January for it to go live. So that should be really exciting. Just a couple weeks out.
And I know that we have a few more integrations on the roadmap. So, Quentin, could you just run us through them, but also explain the importance for the Zano community and how they'll be beneficial to the Zano users?
Well, the ones that I wanted to talk about are not really on the roadmap. They're more just like a mention of the new integrations that we have had over the last month, or the integrations that are coming. that have been announced over the last month. Sorry. First one is SimpleSwap, which is a swap platform. They announced that they will add Zano to their platform. So once that is done, I will obviously make sure we dedicate a marketing campaign to it and some information that it's live. Same goes for StealthX, which is, I believe, a pretty well-known swap platform. And the swap platforms are quite popular in the Zano community at the moment. I know a lot of people use Exolix, some people use Swapter or WizardSwap. And then we will have SimpleSwap and Change Now also, and StealthX added in the following weeks or months. So that should, give people a variety of swap platforms to choose from. So it's great to see that we are being added to more and more swap platforms. We have gotten a new exchange listing, which is Rabbit. It's like a very unknown exchange. I don't even think it has any liquidity, but it was in the monthly update, in the monthly project update, so I thought I'd mention it here as well. Something that is very exciting that I would like to mention as well is that No One's app has announced that they will integrate Zano. It's from Ray Youssef. He's the CEO of No One's, which is a very cool app. I think it's very popular, especially in Africa. It has almost 2 million users, and you can trade crypto peer-to-peer. They have like a spot exchange that you can buy gift cards with the cryptos that are integrated there. It's a wallet at the same time, so it's like a pretty versatile ecosystem that they have there. They even have a card, like a crypto credit card, I believe. I'm not sure if Zano will be added to that feature, which should be unlikely. But all in all, the other features are, exciting enough as they are. So I'm very hyped for that integration. I had a small chat with Ray at the Zano booth as well. He was very interested in Zano, which was cool to see. And he mentioned it there that he was going to add Zano. So very excited for that. No timeline though, but it will happen at some point. So that's really cool.
Thanks for that update. And Pavel, I have a question for you. I know the Matrix Messenger went live internally and it will soon go live public. Could you tell me a bit more about it and why it's important?
That is correct, and we should probably release it sometime next week, available for public, but we already run a couple of internal tests, and we basically using right now for the internal communication any sensitive data. The reason being, for a privacy-focused ecosystem, there should be a way to privately communicate with the person you don't know and have no way of proving their identity. The way it works, you could claim a Matrix login credentials with your alias, and there will be a web application. It's there. Actually, I could share the link even. You'll be able to claim a Matrix credential and log into Zano dedicated Matrix server with your alias, and that way you can be sure that you're talking to the person you send your money to or from. That could allow lots of use cases, including P2P trading or cryptocurrency trading, or if you're just uncertain about Telegram or whatever messenger you're using, you could just do that.
And could you run me through the entire process of using it? Because you mentioned the fact that you have to set up an alias. So is that the first step of it? If you can just run it a step by step, that'll be useful for people that might want to use it.
Of course, yes. Alias is the first thing you need to have to be a part of Zano ecosystem, because we'll use it for web app logins and basically everywhere on Zano Trade, in our upcoming governance platform and Messenger as well. The process would be you acquire an alias, you log into the website. I will not say the URL right now, not to spoil the announcement. Then you'll be able to connect with the Zano Companion. It's a Zano extension that allows you to sign transactions or messages with your wallet. And by that, you can claim and confirm the ownership of the alias and get yourself a login pair. that login you can use in any matrix client, such as Element or well, whatever else. There are at least 5, and you can pick the one you prefer. And that would be it. Starting from then, you could message privately using your alias as your nickname, as your handle.
Thanks. And could you just tell me a bit more about the underlying technology? Because I assume the messaging platform will be off-chain. So how do you ensure the privacy and security?
It's a very well-known open source platform. It's called Matrix. There are like lots of implementations. So I could probably send some links for anyone who is interested in the underlying tech, but I can assure it's been reviewed hundreds of times. It's open source. It uses federated server. So your messages are stored in an encrypted way on a dedicated server.
Okay, thank you so much. And just to clarify, because I want to make sure that I personally get it right, it's more of a Zano integrating the Matrix messaging.
Well, not exactly.
You
We built the login system. You can use Alias to log into the thing, but we are not storing messages on the blockchain. Or that's what people normally assume when they hear cryptocurrency messenger, that you store the messages on blockchain. And I can assure it's very inefficient, and we would never do that. That's a blockchain bloat, and there is no real reason to do that. What we need to take care of is the authentication system, which we did with the Zano aliases.
Nice. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. And the Zano price went up since the last episode from 8K to 11K. And there are a lot of reasons that we can attribute this to. But Quinton, what do you think is the main one?
I mean, I always, I never really like to talk about price. I mean, obviously, it's great to see that we have such a nice growth. You can't really pinpoint it down on one thing, I believe. Like I said at the start of this episode, I think it's just a commencement of everyone's contributions. There are a lot of people that have been putting quite a bit of effort into, whatever they do for Zano, whether it be promoting it, building something on top of it. So yeah, I think just all those efforts combined is what puts us where we're at today.
And we were talking about confidential layer and their airdrop earlier on. So Quinton, could you please tell me a bit more about the additional Zano tasks that will be added and how people can participate in that?
Yeah, sure. They can, like I said, they can go to cloneairdrop.com and they can just follow the steps there to participate. And in some weeks' time, there will be Zano dedicated tasks. But I mean, it will all be announced a little bit later on. So just keep an eye on our socials, and then instructions will follow.
Thanks for that. Thank you, Zano team. Aaron, are you with us? I think Quinton has made a speaker.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Thank you so much for joining the Twitter space.
Happy to be here.
Did you have the opportunity to go to MoneroTopia?
I did. It was fantastic. It was wonderful to finally get to meet all the Zano people in person. And this is my first MoneroTopia, but I agree with Pavel's sentiments that there really does seem to be a more of a collaborative environment, and people are actually taking privacy seriously and not being quite as dogmatic as they might have otherwise been in the past. So I was thrilled with it and look forward to going back next year.
Oh, that's really good to hear. And what was the temperature check? Do you think that people are a lot more open to accept privacy coins? Because I know that around 4 or even 3-4 years ago, everyone was assuming that privacy is for criminals, and we all know this ongoing debate. So do you think that this sentiment is fading away?
I think there's a gigantic shift because one thing is that people are actually finally starting to fully appreciate the fact that Bitcoin is not private. I think there's been a misunderstanding for a long time about Bitcoin itself. And so now with, what we've seen with, but not only Ross Ulbricht, but people like Ian Freeman and now Roger facing the situation he's facing and many others. I mean, let's face it, the US government has 200,000 Bitcoin, and it's not because they bought it on the open market or mined it. They actually stole it using civil asset forfeiture. And they were able to do that because these transactions are on an open public ledger. So people are waking up, and people are finally starting to take action and to understand this. The other thing that happened is COVID really opened people's eyes up too, to the extent to which governments are starting to overreach big time on surveillance. So privacy coins aren't something just for people engaging in the dark market. Normal things that people do day to day, buying organic vegetables, buying red meat, potentially buying raw milk, just normal things are soon to become black market. And I think people are aware of this. The other thing is, if you saw Mark Andreessen on with Joe Rogan, and now the world is waking up to the fact that people are being debanked. I mean, I know a lot of us on this space probably have either been debanked or were more than aware of the situation. But what's come out in the last few weeks is that Barron Trump, Melania Trump have been debanked. Nick Fuentes, and all of these tech CEOs that Andreessen talked about. So I think there's going to be a renaissance in kind of focus and interest in privacy coins from people that otherwise weren't even thinking about it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And what's your prediction? Like, how do you think that it will play out? Do you believe the privacy coins will gain a lot more popularity within the next 3 or 5 years, or do you think it will happen in 2025-6?
I think popularity is going to increase by the end of this year. And I do want to say something. I want to point this out. This isn't something I've been able to talk about until now, but
I'm so sorry to interrupt. We lost you for a second. I don't know whether it's just on my end.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right, there's something there's something that I want to announce. So I've been, heavily involved in promoting this FreeRoger Now campaign. There's a whole group of people behind this, but Roger Ver is going to be on Tucker Carlson tomorrow. And so, I'm not entirely sure what he's going to say, but knowing Roger, I wouldn't be surprised if Zano doesn't come up. So if you're familiar at all, if you're not familiar with Tucker Carlson, some of his videos have gotten over 100 million views on X. He was the most popular anchor on Fox News before he left or was fired or whatever and migrated over to X. He did an interview with Putin, which garnered 200 million plus views. And so there's literally going to be tomorrow a full interview about Roger and his situation. So I will tell you also that, I have a number of interviews, just coming up in the next couple of weeks. So I actually think privacy coins are going to start becoming more popular. And on this issue, so Edward Snowden talked about the importance of privacy at the Bitcoin conference last year in Nashville. But I recently saw a clip between Tucker Carlson and Jimmy Dore, where Tucker Carlson had indicated that he had his doubts about Bitcoin and that he was interested in privacy coins. So we're talking about, this year for the first time, I think privacy coins really hitting the main stage. And if that happens in the context of Roger, what a phenomenal opportunity.
Yeah, there are a lot of pieces coming together, and I think we'll see that, and a lot more people appreciate their privacy, because even I assumed that Bitcoin is private when I joined the industry, but it's not as private as you think it is. And if you learn how to track and how to follow transactions, you can just identify some wallets and who they're owned by. It's a very interesting topic, but I want to move to a current project that you're working on, and that's Kaurma, which is gold-backed stablecoin. So could you just tell me a bit more about the logic behind it, and how did you come up with this idea? Why is it essential to have this product?
So the idea came about. So I do workshops. All last year I was going around the United States with my wife, and we do these workshops in front of anywhere from 50 to 200 people. And the whole purpose of it is to onboard people to alternative currencies. And so basically the whole premise is that, and I wrote a book about this called The Final Countdown, the biggest threat we have to human liberty is central bank digital currencies. And central bank digital currencies are coming at a very fast rate. Basically, we're in a situation now where 134 countries representing 98% of global GDP are working on CBDCs. And these CBDCs are not on open, public, transparent ledgers. These are being built in a way that can be centrally controlled, tracked, and censored, which I've outlined in my books and my workshops and everything else. And so what is the solution to that? What is the solution to CBDCs? Well, it's not Bitcoin. It's not Ethereum. It's not cryptocurrencies that are on transparent ledgers. We all are starting to fully appreciate that now. In fact, because you can track and trace these transparent blockchains, it essentially makes them no longer fungible, because not every Bitcoin is the same as every other Bitcoin. You could actually start flagging these things, and only Bitcoin on a whitelist can be used, or if your Bitcoin is on a blacklist, it can't be used. And so this is a real substantial problem to the use case of cryptocurrencies as an alternative to CBDCs. But the problem is I go around talking to merchants. People have to understand that in the United States, less than 0.5% of Americans actually use cryptocurrency to buy something, to use it as actual peer-to-peer cash. And this has been on a decline. And in part, it's because people have bought into this narrative of Bitcoin is digital gold, but also in part because there haven't been many point of sale solutions, or the point of sale solutions that exist in the marketplace have either gone away or aren't taking new customers, as in the case of BitPay. The other issue is when I talk to merchants, they're actually concerned about taking cryptocurrency because of the instability of the price. And so that's actually a critical concern. Now, of course, at the same time, the dollar itself has lost purchasing power. It's lost anywhere between, according to the latest Brownstone research, 25 and 40% of its purchasing power just since 2020. So they know the dollar's evaporating, but they want something that's more stable. And a lot of these people believe in gold. Gold has held its value for thousands of years, but the challenge with gold is, of course, that it's not very portable, and it's not very easy to use for day-to-day transactions. And so my thinking on this is that if we could combine the best attributes of gold, where we're actually using physical gold and backing tokens, 1-to-1 with physical gold, where you could actually redeem your token for physical gold, but with the privacy features of Zano and with the low transaction fees and the ability to actually use this to use Zano tokens for day-to-day commerce, because the fees are low enough and it's actually fast enough to use for commerce, then we have a solution that merchants are actually very interested in. And I've actually talked to a number of merchants that are kind of waiting for this. And so the idea is, for instance, if you've ever used Now Payments, which is a point of sale system, the way that this is set up is the merchant can select any of a number of different cryptocurrencies that they want to receive, but then they only get paid ultimately in a single cryptocurrency of their choice. And so the idea here would be that Kaurma, the gold-backed stablecoin, could be that kind of reference currency that merchants use. So this enables them to take multiple cryptocurrencies, but they end up getting paid in a gold-backed stablecoin, which to them is better than actually getting paid in the dollar, or even a like Tether or a stablecoin like that, because again, the dollar itself is losing purchasing power at quite a rate. So if you compare how gold is held up relative to fiat, this is actually a pretty compelling offer for merchants. So to me, this solves what I see as the big adoption issue for the use of cryptocurrency or alternative currencies more broadly for day-to-day transactions.
Yeah. That's super interesting, and I have a lot of questions, but just to bring you back to one of the initial points that you made, is that there is an issue with the rise of CBDCs, and I feel like we overall agree on this. And you mentioned that Bitcoin is not the solution to it because it's trackable and traceable. Could you elaborate a bit more on the argument of why that's a problem? Because on the opposite side, some people might argue that being synonymous is good enough. So why do you think that that's a problem, that someone that might be able to track your address, because it will require a lot of technical knowledge and it's not as easy as people think, especially if you're quite careful and you move money around? But yeah, can you just elaborate on this? I'm really interested in hearing your thoughts.
Well, so I hear that, but you shouldn't have to have 150 IQ and be a developer to keep money private. And the truth of the matter is, it is actually fairly difficult to keep. And even if you look at people like Roger and Ross Ulbricht, Ian Freeman, and all of these other people, and the fact that the government has 200,000 Bitcoin that it's confiscated, it is fairly hard, and it's not practical for most people to go through the extra steps. So privacy by default, I think, is actually critical for something like this. But I mean, we're seeing how much this is being tracked. And frankly, I think it's being tracked more than people think. I've heard some things about more transactions have been tracked. I mean, I know, yes, it may seem like it's hard to do or expensive, but the US government will spend $1 trillion to solve a $50 problem. So you can't look at these things in terms of whether or not it's economical or not. They are clearly spending time on this. And look, this case with Roger, which, by the way, since this is, Zano focused, we're currently, the team at Zano is sponsoring. You can go to the freerogernow.org website that talks about Roger's case, and you can actually submit your Zano wallet and you'll receive $1 worth of Zano. But I bring that up in the context of this tracking thing, because if you look at Roger's case, I mean, clearly they went through and tracked all of his wallets, and the precedent that they're trying to set. The thing that people need to understand is the IRS is already working with Coinbase. So, this idea that, well, if you take extra steps, we'll understand that most of the centralized exchanges, or all of the centralized exchanges in the United States, are already turning over all of their customers' transaction information and addresses. So yes, I mean, if you're talking about the universe of people, if you mined Bitcoin 10 years ago and it never touched an exchange, and if you take extra steps, so on and so forth, you can protect your identity. Well, the number of people that actually affects is almost zero. But beyond that, people literally aren't using Bitcoin for daily transactions, which is why we've dropped to only 0.5% of Americans using cryptocurrency for day-to-day transactions. So clearly people are not using Bitcoin. And in part, that's because the fees and what Roger talks about in hijacking Bitcoin. I actually had a situation this weekend where somebody wanted to convert some Bitcoin to Zano, and I was helping them through the process. And they had a hardware wallet, and they hadn't used it for a long time, and they didn't change the fees. And so the thing got gummed up, and it basically got stuck, because at that moment in time, the average a couple days ago, it was $2.29 was the average transaction fee. And if they actually wanted to be able to get the transaction done in a timely manner for a swap, they would have had to pay more than that. And so Bitcoin is clearly not usable as peer-to-peer digital cash. And by the way, the new standard bearer, Michael Saylor, will tell you now, I mean, this story has gone from peer-to-peer digital cash to, he's literally said, we don't want to compete with the dollar. We don't want to compete with the euro. We don't want to compete with MasterCard. We don't want to compete with Visa. This is about complying with know your customer laws. This is about paying your taxes. And now he's even saying, you really don't need to self-custody. And he's kind of like putting this spin on it of, well, you must be some kind of anarchist criminal if you're self-custodying your own Bitcoin. So the whole narrative and the whole plot of Bitcoin has been lost. And I would argue it was hijacked intentionally. The fact that the Treasury and the Fed chair are now saying that, Bitcoin's not a threat to currency, it's digital gold. People are celebrating that as a win, and it's actually the ultimate L.
Yeah. I really want to bring you back to Kaurma, and you mentioned that the tokens can be redeemed for physical gold. Could you tell me a bit more about the thought process of choosing gold instead of Bitcoin, but also the latest stage of the project, because you said that you're building on top of Zano. Can you just tell us a bit more about when this will be fully implemented? What's the roadmap there?
It's going to be in 2025. So right now what I'm doing is I'm working with different vaults in different countries. And so we're starting this out with vaults in, I believe, 8 different countries. And we're working out, the hardest part of this project is not technical. The hardest part of this project is legal, because there are 2 components to it. There is the process of actually issuing the token, and then there's the process of actually managing the gold reserves. And so we are basically at the point right now, we're talking to lawyers in different jurisdictions related to both of those tasks. So that's actually the hardest part of it all, is actually figuring out that component. But the reason to use gold is, again, gold has a 5,000-year track record. And when you actually go out and talk to merchants, I actually speak directly with merchants, they still think Bitcoin's a scam. You're not going to get mainstream adoption with the idea of a token backed by Bitcoin, because it's still widely perceived as a speculative asset. Now, my personal opinion is, and Roger talked about it in Hijacking Bitcoin, and I talked about it in my book. I mean, at some point, this is great what happened when they shifted the narrative from cash to gold. All of a sudden, the same people that funded SegWit and Lightning, and the same people that funded and pushed the digital gold narrative, also funded all 3 US CBDC pilots. So in other words, in my opinion, this was deliberate. So take the thing that could have been a viable alternative to CBDCs, take the thing that could have been used as cash for day-to-day purchases, cut it off at the knees, while at the same time developing a CBDC, and in fact, even using similar developers. Corey Fields, who was a Bitcoin Core developer, is actually a co-author of the United States Retail CBDC pilot. So I think this is great from the standpoint of the Federal Reserve and from the government, who wanted to neutralize Bitcoin as a threat to the dollar. And I think they've actually done that very well. So we still, 14, 15 years in, we don't have a solution for peer-to-peer digital cash for the world. And we don't have any meaningful adoption of peer-to-peer digital cash for the world. Well, what does that need to look like? Well, historically, gold has been well respected globally, but the problem even with gold is, the real problem with currency is the involvement of the state. So the state will either print money out of existence, or they'll even debase the precious metals, which they did in ancient Rome. And then in the United States, we had the gold standard up until 1971. And then France decided, hey, we want you to make good on this. We want to exchange essentially our gold certificates for actual gold. And the Treasury Department said, hey, that's your problem. And then we just abandoned the gold standard. So people that are sitting around saying, oh, well, BRICS and all these other people are saying or Zimbabwe is going to go on the gold standard. Well, are we going to believe government now? Do we think that there's been an ethical shift in how these governments operate? So the idea here is, let's have sound money backed by gold, but that it's actually separate from state, where the money itself isn't tied in any way, shape, or form to government spending. And so that's why I think that we've got a real shot with this.
Nice, that's really interesting. And why did you choose to build on top of Zano? What were the unique features that you identified when you were looking for a blockchain?
So I've been looking at tokenization for a long time. I've been kind of experimenting with this for 5 years or so. And the thing that I like about it is, well, it's twofold. One, privacy is critical for this. And because again, I don't want to, this wouldn't be the first gold-backed crypto. There are a lot of gold-backed tokens that are based on Ethereum, but I mean, frankly, the transaction fees are such that it's not usable for day-to-day commerce. You're not going to be able to buy a cup of coffee using a gold-backed Ethereum token. So we have the issues of privacy, and then we also have the issues of the cost of using the token and the cost of using the network. And so actually there really isn't any other choice. Basically, Zano is the only is the only game in town on this. And so I
lost you for a second.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Aaron, I lost you for a second. Could you please?
Sorry, I heard him loud and clear. I think that maybe it was a connectivity issue on your end.
Oh, it might be on my end. Apologies for that.
So to me, I was saying that Zano's really the only game in town. And at this point, Roger introduced me to this in April, and I've spent a lot of time using it and getting to know people in the community and studying it, reading the white paper and everything else. And to me, it's the ideal blockchain for this type of project. And in fact, in general, Zano is built for making other assets private, which is a gigantic use case, given that the threat that we have isn't just CBDCs. What people don't realize is that they're building a common platform. They're not just going to tokenize money, which is basically what a CBDC is centrally tokenized money. They're going to tokenize all of our assets, our stocks, our bonds, our mortgages. Everything is going to be tokenized on the same platform with CBDCs. So all of the surveillance, all of the programmability, and all of the censorship isn't going to apply just to our money. It's going to apply to all of our assets. And essentially, that's how we get to this you will own nothing scenario. So Zano is basically the antidote to that, because it is the way to make all assets private and to be able to be traded P2P. And so this is why I'm so passionate about this project. So to me, this is the clear and ideal blockchain for doing a gold-backed privacy stablecoin.
And you mentioned the FreeRoger campaign a few times. So could you, and you encourage the listeners to read about it, but could you give me the TLDR and why is it so important to you?
Well, it's important to me. Roger to me is kind of a hero of mine in terms of, I learned about Bitcoin from him in 2012. And then I also learned about Bitcoin Cash. I learned about Zano from him, but I also know him fairly well and are completely ideologically aligned. I mean, Roger believes in voluntarism and in voluntary interactions. He's very much anti-war. He's very aware of and knowledgeable about how central banking leads to misery, poverty, and violence all over the world. And so from the very first time I heard him talk about Bitcoin in 2012, that has been his mission. His mission has been to spread freedom and to basically stop violence. And he's been involved not only in cryptocurrency projects, but a lot of people aren't aware of personally some of the projects that he's been involved in because he doesn't talk about it. He's funded antiwar.com. He was the largest funder of Ross Ulbricht's legal campaign. He's funded various think tanks, FEE. He was actually the founding donor of the Brownstone Institute, where I'm actually a fellow, which if you're not familiar with the Brownstone Institute has been on the front line fighting the lockdowns and the mandates and the censorship industrial complex. Roger was there at the beginning. So the reason this is important to me is he's being attacked very specifically for political reasons. He actually did nothing wrong. He actually did pay his taxes. And I'll give a little brief history about what this is all about. Roger had spent some time in prison in around 2000 for selling fireworks on eBay. He was the only person in the United States to go to prison for this, even though Cabela's and other retailers and mail order catalogs were selling this same firework. He went to federal prison because he was a libertarian running for office as a libertarian, speaking out against, taxation is theft, war is murder funded by theft, speaking out against the ATF. And so he spent 10 months in federal prison for this, where he was psychologically tortured, and he's talked about this. And so around 2001, he's like, look, it's time for me to leave the United States. So he spent time working on this and was trying to find a place. He actually moved to Japan. He didn't completely expatriate, but he moved to Japan. And then finally in 2014, he was able to land in St. Kitts. And so he expatriated. And when you leave the United States, you have to pay an exit tax. You just basically have to value all of your assets and then pay an exit tax on that. So Roger, and now mind you, this is 2014. Nobody knows how to treat, the IRS doesn't know how to treat Bitcoin at this point in time. People don't know if it is a currency. They don't know if it's an asset. They don't have any clear guidance on this at all. This is also the period of time where Mt. Gox had just collapsed. So basically there's no liquidity in the marketplace at all. Nevertheless, Roger hires the best accountants, best lawyers, and then actually pays the tax. And they come after him 10 years later. And it just so happens to be, by the way, 3 weeks after Hijacking Bitcoin is published, and I think 3 days after he gave a talk at Token 2049, where his big kind of push at the end of his talk was to talk about the importance of privacy tokens. So he ends up getting arrested, thrown into the same prison that John McAfee died in after McAfee fought for extradition for 8 months. And that's where Roger's been for 7 months. The U.S. government hasn't even said how much they think he owes. They've offered him no ability to negotiate. They raided his lawyer's office. They violated his attorney-client privilege. I view Roger personally as the single most influential person on the planet at actually fighting and tackling CBDCs based on what he's been able to do in terms of evangelizing initially Bitcoin and then all of the other projects that he subsequently worked on. And so I think this is a political attack. And I think that there's a real chance that we can get working together. If we raise enough awareness on this, then he can be pardoned on day one, along with Ross Ulbricht, the J6 prisoners, and everyone else. I actually think if we spend enough, and obviously with Roger going on Tucker Carlson tomorrow, it's going to be the only interview he gives because he's essentially been gagged the entire time. This is the only time anybody's going to hear from Roger on this. And so I fully stand by him and will do everything I can to help.
Thank you so much for that and breaking down the entire case and sharing your opinion about it. Quinton, could you please take it from here and we can open the floor for questions in case anyone has any?
Yes, definitely. I would just like to add for people that haven't signed it yet, you can go now to freerogernow.org and you can sign the petition there. It's just like a minute of work. You can even get $1 in Zano for it. Not that that should be your reason to do it, but just go ahead and do it, please. If there are any people with questions, whether it be for the Zano team or for Aaron or anyone here, drop them in the Zano Telegram general chat or in the Discord general chat. I am monitoring both right now. So if you have a question, you can ask them there, or you can just simply request to be a speaker, and I can allow you to be a speaker here in this Twitter Spaces. All right, I see we have a person that requested to speak. I'll allow him on stage. There he is.
And the entire Zano team, the founder, everyone. So thanks very much for the opportunity. So my question goes to us. I'm very interested in Roger's case, and I kind of commented on Aaron's comment section earlier, but I guess of course he's a busy man, so it's understandable if he doesn't see it. Would the freeroger.org website, signing the form, must you be, or does your vote only count if you are a US citizen, or it doesn't matter wherever you are from the world, you can sign the form and it's going to count? Thank you.
And anyone can sign from anywhere in the world. And please sign, and please sign, and please share with your friends. I will say, these social media sites don't like links to external sites, so I recommend if if you have some close friends or folks that you think would be interested in this, DM them or send them a message on Telegram or Signal, because this kind of external link gets suppressed on X and other social media platforms.
All right, thank you very much. That answers my question, and I want to just still appreciate everyone, the whole organizers. God, I've missed this was an eye opener for me. Like I seriously enjoyed this space, and I'll be watching out for Zano. I'm so very confident about the project now. I think Zano is the next storm that will just take over the entire crypto space. I really can't believe everything I just heard this night. It's just so enlightening. So thank you very much once again, and I think I'll be out. That's all.
Yeah, thank you for your kind words, Ernie. I appreciate it. I think we all appreciate that. All right, let's see. I don't think any questions came through, actually. Although we talked about a lot, so I mean, there should be some questions at least. But let's give the people a couple more minutes, and if we have no questions, then we can just close off today's spaces.
Well, I got a question for Aaron. So you talked about that the hardest part for Kaurma will be the legal basis. So I wanted to ask you, how you think Kaurma compares to what happened with Liberty Reserve?
Well, I think this is completely different. The one thing that I can say about the legal aspect of this, which might clarify this, is I'm not doing this in the United States. So that's one very significant difference. And I think that's something that you know, people learned early on. So, you know, we're obviously looking at everything that has been done in the past, and we're structuring this in a way that, you know, learns from some of those past mistakes.
All right. Great. Thank you.
I think we lost Ivan as a host. Let me invite him back up. You're back.
Yeah, apologies for that. Just a terrible internet connection in Zanzibar, to be honest. I've been here for a few weeks and I've been struggling with it, but it's okay now.
Okay, great. Let's see. Kexploit has a question. He says, sorry, I missed the space, so unsure of the context. So if the question is out of scope, please ignore. I'm interested in what discussions, if any, are happening regarding network layer countermeasures. I guess this has to do with IP obfuscation, Pavel?
Yeah, could be it. And I wasn't on the call, but you guys were with Andre and the NEEM team, and this is the direction we are researching right now because Tor proved to be kind of unreliable. So we are looking into NEEM integration, maybe if we could allow it to work with their tokenomics. So that's the research right now, and if it's not going to work, we'll try to think of something else. So it's on a roadmap, but we cannot deliver any timeline yet, but we are working on
it. Yeah. Ideally, I mean, we had the chat with the NIM team last week, me and Andre, and it was very nice chat. There seemed to be really nice people as well, so it was just great to connect in general. Andre had some very technical questions for them, and they couldn't answer those. So I believe we're going to be setting up another meeting to with a guy in charge at NIM that can answer these questions for us. The NIM Mixnet is like a paid service, so that was like a hurdle, but it's not unovercomable. I guess like we could figure out a solution, but definitely we are working on like a replacement, so to say, of the Tor network, which was once integrated into the desktop wallet, but has been shut off for some reasons. So yeah, more on that later. Let's see. Thumbs up. Great. Thanks, Kexploit. I don't think any other questions came in, to be honest. Oh, there's one person that requests to speak. I will let him on stage. Habib, are you there? Hello?
Good evening.
Hey, good evening. How are you doing?
Fine. How was your day?
Yeah, good. Please
Yeah.
ask us your question.
Yeah, this is Habib. I'm asking about the site. One is to fill out that form because I'm wrong in my own end here. I couldn't hear the name of the site again. The platform.
You mean for the FreeRoger campaign?
Yes. You mentioned it earlier.
FreeRogerNow.org.
FreeRoger.
Yes, that's correct. That's the one. FreeRogerNow.org.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's just all I have.
You're welcome, man.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess that was it for today then, right?
Yeah, same so.
Would you like to take the opportunity to close the spaces, Ivan?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining the Twitter space. Aaron, thank you so much for sharing your story, the project you're working on, and giving us the background on the Roger case. It's super interesting. It would be nice to have you back in a couple of months for an update on your project and what's going on there. We'll be having another Twitter space on the second Monday of next month. So please join us and we'll give you the latest updates on Zano and what
in the new year.
Yeah, it actually will be 2025. So that'll be amazing. I didn't think about it.
Yeah, we'll be back in the new year. So enjoy the holidays, everyone. Make it a good one, and hopefully we see you on the next one.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks for joining, everyone. Have a lovely one.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye. Cheers.